Opening up with the king pawn is Yagiz Kaan. He's 14 years old, a chess sensation from Turkey, and his opponent in this game, playing in response, Le Francais variation, whispering on guard, is Levon Aronian, a man in the form of his life in the last few years, anyway, right now. It's a mouth-watering clash from the FIDE Grand Swiss, and we really witnessed some chess genius in this game, a sheer brilliancy to come. Let's dive right in. Over the board chess, clock time's on the left here, and this is a sharp move because bam, it invites the razor sharp winnower variation. Now because of the pin, we see the pawn advance, now c5 pressuring the center, and this is the main line here. You get something like this, and the queen often streams out to g4, hits a pawn. You can play the queen out, ignore, you can castle. Really rich position, not reached. Instead, we get this sideline here, trying to keep the pawn structure intact. Knight e7, a3, same thing, but bang, you take back with the bishop, keeping it all together, b6, and now if you go queen g4, go for the attack, it's not as strong. Castles can be played. Less potent attack for white with this bishop over here. So, pawn h4, the modern way. Something about pushing a rook's pawn makes you feel like an absolute boss. Give it a go. Now we see bishop a6, a positionally desirable move for black. This was the quote-unquote bad bishop, stuck behind the pawns there. Very stinky knight though in its place. h5, and you don't really want this kind of pawn structure with g6. Swiss cheese on the dark squares, hence this. Now knight f3, rook c8, queen e2. Don't blunder your pony. Levon does not. Some think he's despairing, setting up for the next game, but we know better. He's a fighter, a lion as Agadmator would say. You can castle either side here, right? But Yaz plays the most aggressive move. Launching Gary the goat pawn down the board here. It's looking to expand one day and rip things open. And I love how this pawn structure dominates this knight, right? Where's its prospects? They're very, very smelly. Queen d7 played. It's a sneaky move. If you castle queenside, then there's queen a4, starts pressuring around the king, laterally pressures the center, the knight starts hopping to c6 and so on. So okay, in the game, bishop d2, preparing to set up the absolutely overpowered connect 4. Levon therefore fights back, and the standard way of playing is knight recaptures, but it was not played. Look at the ambition here. Bishop b4, looking to create this pope in the center of the board. Best is probably developing, hitting that bishop, but Levon plays the really crafty rook to c4. He whispers, do you even rook lift, bro? And sets a trap. If you push with the pawn, we're in the back cave, analysis mode. Looks like you're having to back up, waste time, but actually there's pawn d3. You hit the queen, and if takes with the queen, well, there's horrible checks and stuff. If takes with the pawn, this one is loose. One of the ideas of all of this stuff. So, in the game, we get rook g1, defends the pawn, prepares to crank things open soon. Now knight a6, and probably not quite the best move, but it was a tough position. If you play the knight to the normal square, you're blocking that retreat path of the rook. So with all the pressure going on here, we get pawn b3 now flicked in, and if you move the rook, well, you lose the knight. So this is why pawn d3 has to be inserted. Queen takes, bad, you get check. King's castling rights ruined, powerful rook, let's not go on. Pawn takes played, and now after the rook moves here, you can land this one in the center of the board. It's no longer a bishop, excuse me, definitely a pope. Pope d6 there, what a monster. The seahorse is spawned, pawn attacked, but before this one can get too comfortable, it's kicked, And of course it can't come to the center square where it'd love to sit, so it sidelines itself. Now this one looking tender, but queen d2, and actually don't sit there, that's bad. You're soon going to get kicked, and now you can never bring this knight round or you interrupt the connection, piece drops. So this f6 was played. Very stinky move. If ever castles, by the way, g5 was ripping it open. Tough position for Levon. We now see knight h4, taking advantage of the weakened square. Now castles, there's no g5. You've got enough of a clamp going on, but there is this move, takes on e7. Now, why would you give up that wonderful bishop? Well, of course, it's to go to Forktown. Population Levon. Looks like you're winning an exchange, but actually you can't afford to take it yet. The queen crashes through with check. King goes, and after the queen takes in the corner here, it's not just about winning an exchange and a pawn, or sorry, sacrificing an exchange for a pawn. You win an entire rook. So this king simply sidesteps. Rook saves itself now. You could immediately rip things open, but instead this one slides over with a whoosh, hits this unprotected pawn here, but Levon doesn't care. He just dallies into the position here and threatens the queen exchange. Given the question mark, not the best, but finding that best continuation, not easy. It's actually queen takes on c2. Because after rook takes, looks really good for black, nice invasion, but takes, rook takes to stay with this pawn, and now f4 really puts the squeeze on. This isn't an obvious way to play though, pushing the pawn in front of the king, supported by this knight, allowing black with this great rook on the second. Maybe you kick it one day soon. Best line, but not played, rook e2. Now I mentioned that sideline because now we're back to a level game. These are the fine margins of chess. Rook recaptures. The brilliancy's on the way. Levon could liquidate here. Get the rooks off. It's a roughly level position, but he doesn't do it. He plays rook c3, and it's more ambitious. Going for the pawn against his young opponent, who he outrates quite considerably. Rook takes on a3. Now we see this rook activate. And after the knight re-enters the game here, rook c2 pressuring, d4, it looks like Levon has got everything under control. He's in the driving seat, takes, fine, rook takes, covering the backwards pawn. But what he's missed here from afar, no doubt, is an absolute brilliancy. Yaz finds it. Can you spot this move? The move he plays is rook to e4.
Pooh, what a move. What a move.
And the idea is, if you take that one, you've just unleashed this bad boy. That is a checkmate. Come this way, mated. Come this way, mated. King can't escape. Block with the rook, mated. Like this. So the knight is absolutely glued to the square. Cannot move. And this pawn here is about to drop. How do you defend it? Can't move the knight. What to do? Well, Levon does try a desperate defense, but he should have already gone king h7, rook takes, then just give up this exchange straight away. But he plays this, giving that king a square on e6, but now takes. We get pawn a5, trying to create that passer. A little bit of tickle here. Remember, the mate is not working anymore. King does escape. So this one now takes, rook takes back played, and after check, king f7, another check, winning a bit of time on the clock. Yaz just coolly and calmly brings this one in behind here, and he's attacking this pawn in the center of the board. Impossible to defend. If you try rook d5, now you run into this horrible tactic. Not working. Rook f4 not working. Rook d6. If you move here, presumably a rook invasion. I stopped clicking because the pawn's moribund. Here it goes off the board. Knight's now about to drop, but defended. Rook c1. Looks like you can land a fork, but no. One of these two can check the king. So king h7 was played, now threatens it, but here the rook saves itself. Mate in 1 threatened, of course this is a must. Played in the game. The king escapes from the horrible box it was in. Rook e1, and the key now with the white pieces is activating those 2 rooks. That's how you play against the knight. Open the lines up here, king marching around, and after rook d to d6, we see resigns from Levon because the pawns are dropping. Say you try and push, win one of these, we can even shut things down. That pawn's about to drop. Long story short, you're going to be probably 1 or even 2 pawns ahead and an exchange ahead. It's too much material, especially at this level of chess. Hope you enjoyed this fantastic game, and in case you missed this one on screen from earlier in the tournament, definitely check it out. What a battle. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon. Cheers.